Welcome to The Controversial Truth, where we bring you information on health and wealth that nobody would ever tell you until now. I'm your host, Dr. Victoria Munoz, and today we have a very special guest for you. You know, even in the most emotionally healthy environments, traditional methods of improving mental health in the workplace fail to improve employee emotional well-being for significant amounts of time. Dr. Karthik Ramanan, who traditionally goes by Dr. K, is a former burnt-out Wall Street professional turned naturopathic medical doctor, emotional health expert, and life coach. Through his Emotional Healthy Company Benefit Program, Dr. K helps companies overcome challenges associated with employee burnout and stress. In contrast to those generic employee assistance programs that do little for employees and companies alike, the Emotional Healthy Company program connects with individuals at every level of the company, teaching reliable methods of emotional betterment that radically improve the professional landscape from the inside out. Because people are our most important business asset, an investment in their well-being is an investment in your bottom line. Please help me in welcoming Dr. K. So good to have you here today on my podcast, and we have so many interesting things to talk about. But first I want to start by you just telling about yourself and introducing yourself to the audience so that they kind of know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You mind if I introduce myself in a story?
No, that would be great.
All right, sounds good. Because I think it adds context to what I do today and why I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So about 12 years ago, I found myself in an interesting spot. So I was a pretty successful professional at a Wall Street investment bank. Granted, I was in the middle of the aftermath of the recession and everything else, and that was when, you know, I had gone through several years of my career, and despite it's an already stressful industry and putting in more hours and more effort, especially when things were not going well in the industry, it was just if anything else for survival, right? But in the process, I did do well, and I was promoted, and I did have an opportunity to move up, and I just found myself, like I said, 12 years ago or so, in an interesting spot where I had gotten my own apartment in downtown Jersey City, right across the river from downtown Manhattan, where I worked. It was this brand new skyrise building, 30th floor. There were no other buildings of that height around me, so I had this clear view of the Jersey horizon, the sunsets. It was absolutely gorgeous. And when you stood up next to that window and looked out, especially at night, you really felt like you were on top of the world. And that apartment represented all the work and sacrifice that I had put in to get there, whether it was at minimum 60-hour weeks or often 80, sometimes 100-hour weeks, and putting my personal life on the back burner and everything else. And so it was an incredible feeling once I got there, and here I was in my late 20s, I was making good money. I was able to give more to charity than I ever thought I could at that age. I had paid off my undergraduate student loans, paid off my parents' credit card debt, and I hated the man in the mirror. I couldn't understand how can you have success and have the things that people say you're supposed to have to be happy, and I wasn't. And I couldn't really put those things together, and I couldn't figure out what it was. What I did know, there were certain aspects of my life that were not going well. I was unhealthy. I was significantly overweight. I was lonely. Dating wasn't going well, but I never let anybody at the office know, because the last thing I wanted to do was show any sign of, well, we can let this guy go to cut costs and whatnot, because that's what was happening. A lot of layoffs in that time period because of the economy. And so I was just in this survival mode, but at the same time, just not content and just not sure where to go from there. And so what I was like, all right, well, I attacked everything the way that I always knew how. If you don't know the answer, work harder. And so I was struggling to lose weight. All right, I had changed my diet a few times and everything else, and tried going to the gym more. So, okay, I need more consistency. So I did P90X, I did Insanity.
How'd that go?
I succeeded. I did P90X twice. I did Insanity once, and I lost a bunch of weight. But then after it's so hard to sustain it. And, it's meant to be like a burst of time and then let your body recover and things like that.
Sure.
But as that happened, I just regained, and I wasn't feeling great about myself. But then I hit rock bottom after I got dumped on an email. And that was the
last relationship?
Yeah. It was not much of, I mean, it was the furthest I had gotten into dating, I suppose. So I had a lot of hopes, but that didn't work out. It wasn't meant to be. And then right as I was hitting rock bottom, I saw my sister after a 3-month span. And in that 3 months, she had lost 30 pounds. Her cystic acne had cleared up. She looked incredible. And I just knew in that moment, okay, whatever she did, I was going to do, because I was desperate.
Right.
When you're at rock bottom, you are willing to say yes to things that you wouldn't say yes to otherwise.
Right.
But very hesitantly, I asked her, and excitedly, and she goes, I've just been eating a whole food plant-based diet and mostly raw foods. And I was like, okay, what does that even mean? I've just been eating fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, just as they're found from the earth. And I was like, God, this sounds horrible. Show me how to do this. And so I just said, all right, well, my best ideas in life got me here. All or nothing mentality, being a perfectionist. If I can't do it perfectly, it's not worth doing it at all. That was the way that I had really approached everything in my life. And yes, it had gotten me this career success, but it certainly hadn't given me any personal success. Mm-hmm. And so in that moment, I just decided, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do things the way that I used to do. I'm just going to slowly ease into eating this different way. No expectations. I'm going to stop stepping on the scale every morning to make myself feel miserable. Just see what happens. And slowly but surely, 3 weeks in, I was starting to feel better and better, and it was selling itself to me. I was like, all right, fine, just all 100% all in on this way of eating. And 3 weeks in, I stepped on the scale. I looked down and I saw the lowest weight that I'd ever seen as an adult.
Really?
And in 3 weeks.
Wow. And
that was that moment that, the weight was one thing, but I felt this physiological reaction in me where all of a sudden it was like I've been wearing sunglasses my whole life, and they had just been lifted, and now it was cleared. I could see things in a different way. What if the body that I wanted, the confidence I wanted, the relationship I wanted, the life I wanted, what if it was possible? And what if the only thing that was holding me back was me? It was that clarity, that the lens through which I saw the world was suddenly shattered. There was a new way of looking at things, new possibilities. What was I not allowing myself to do in the past? I don't know, but now it's time to discover. So I never told anybody at work what I was doing, just stayed true to myself there. It was very private. I was the best employee, the guy that, you want something done right, give it to Karthik. You want it done fast, give it to Karthik. If you want it done, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I never let people know that I was struggling, and so when I was making these changes, I never let anybody know what I was doing. But I'd bring my jars of green juice and stuff to the office, and I'd get comments like, "What was that pond scum you're drinking?" Stuff like that. And, but then people came to me for advice, and as they saw me lose weight, and I gave people recipes. I brought some food into work just to show them what it could taste like and things like that. And, people lost weight. I saw type 2 diabetes go away, chronic migraines, chronic joint pain, and at that time I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't know why this is working,
Uh-huh.
but this is cool and this is fulfilling in a way that I had not experienced at that point in life. And I started digging a little bit more, and I was like, I got to figure out how to make this my career. And it was just these synchronicities. I had helped my sister move out here to Arizona at a little point later.
From the East Coast?
From the East Coast, yeah, after she had finished up her master's degree, and she got a job down here. So I helped her move. I wanted to see what Arizona was all about, stuff like that. And it was the beginning of June. You know how it is here. It was like 117 degrees.
Yeah.
And, but I remember stepping out of the airport, feeling like I was on fire, looking up at the sky, seeing no clouds, going, this is awesome. I want to live here. Because I was just so tired of the East Coast weather. But I just remembered that. And then a couple months later, I called her up, and I found out about this thing called naturopathic medicine, right? And I was like, this sounds really amazing. Aid the body in healing itself, licensed medical, program, everything else. And so I thought, this could be a really good way of taking my experience and turning it into a profession that I'm very passionate about and everything else. So I called her up and I said, what do you think of me leaving this Wall Street career and going to naturopathic medical school for 4 years? I'd basically lose all my life savings to that point, go into a ton of debt, start over, and there's no promises. But I feel like I have to do this. And she goes, one of the best naturopathic schools in the country is right up the road from where I live in Arizona, right? I was like, wait, what? Tell me again. And so I looked up Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, where we met, right? And that, the rest was history. I just felt like that was what was meant to be. But when I moved to Arizona, I remember getting on the plane, and the movers had taken all my stuff. I just had a carry-on, and I had a window seat. I was looking out the window, and I was sort of flying out of Newark Airport. I'm looking back, and I'm just seeing my old life fly away from me. And it was in that moment I was like, nobody in Arizona knows me. If there was ever a chance for me to reinvent who I was, this was it. And so yes, on the outside, I was on my way to losing 100 pounds. But on the inside, I was discovering who I could be. And so I took out a sheet of paper and I wrote down this vision of this Dr. K in the future, this guy that I'm building. What is he like? What are his habits, routines? What are his, how does he eat? Who does he spend time with? What does he read? How does he move his body? How much time does he spend outside? Things like that. And I outlined this ideal version of myself, and I used that as the blueprint for every decision that I made going forward. So you remember when I was in medical school, I was president of student government one year, and that was not something I ever would have done in the past. Public speaking,
Really?
any of that. No, absolutely not. None.
Like you're the best.
I appreciate
You're the
that.
best.
But absolutely not at all. And so, like, even public speaking, I was terrified because, like any self-critical person, any opportunity that I had to put myself out there was an opportunity to feel bad about myself. So easy to just avoid wherever possible. But from a leadership standpoint, I never had a leadership position before. I didn't even participate in any clubs in college or sports or anything. And then in high school, I was president of chess club one year. But if outside of that, no leadership roles whatsoever. I never saw myself as such. And definitely not as a speaker or anything else, but I said, that guy Dr. K in the future, this ideal version of me, if we looked at his resume, would he have been president of student government and medical school? Yeah, he would have been. All right, I'm running. That was the way that I did everything. Maybe it didn't come off that way, but I was scared a lot of the time.
It was not obvious that you were scared, no.
And, or every time I get on stage, even to this point, I love it. It energizes me, but, I get asked a lot, before these keynotes and whatever else, like, you look so comfortable on there. How do you do it? I said, I'm scared just like anyone else. It's just that I redirect that angst in a different way. I'm anxious not because I'm worried about making a fool of myself. I'm anxious in a positive way because I'm excited for hopefully making a difference in somebody's life who's out there, even if it's just one person. And so but physiologically it looks the same. I'm jumpy, I'm, heart's beating, everything else. But when you address that self-criticism, it becomes a completely different thing. And so, anyway, as I went through medical school, and after that, there was a point where I really had a chance to think about, like, why did I do this in the first place, right? You know the feeling. Like, you go through the whole program, and you're just like, oh, this is what I should do, or things like that. But you lose sight of why you got into it in the first place. And once I could reconnect, which took a little while after graduating, I just remembered, yes, the nutrition side and losing 100 pounds was amazing. However, it was the psychological transformation that I was the most passionate about. Or even, as you know, right, you can treat a patient and work together to come up with the best treatment plan and a great therapy for them. But if they don't believe that they can get better,
yep,
it's not going to happen. If they identify with their diagnosis, it's going to be very hard for the body to let go.
Absolutely.
Who am I without diabetes? If I'm a diabetic, who am I without my diabetes? What is that diabetes allowing somebody to do that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Sometimes, because I remember with some of the challenges that I had, at a certain point, it did serve as an excuse. Now, I'm not saying for everybody else, but for me, it certainly did at times.
Sure.
Gave me a way out. And so those are the things under the surface that we don't always realize are holding us back. And so my passion really came out in the form of, how can I take all this corporate experience that I had, plus this personal journey, plus naturopathic medicine, and answer a question that I feel is not well answered right now, which is, how many of us have been taught how to be emotionally healthy, right?
Right.
If I have a plant in my house and it's dying, and I said, okay, Dr. Victoria, help me, this is dying. You have several beautiful ones out here. What do I do? What would you suggest I do?
I'm not a green thumb, but if we were going to transfer that to a patient,
even just the plant.
We're just going to talk about
the plant.
Because I'm not a green thumb, but I would say you got to give it some love. You got to give it some care. You have to connect with it on an intuitive level, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the intention, then nothing's going to improve, right? Whether it's nurturing a plant, nurturing your life, nurturing a relationship, if the intention isn't there and the focus, then it's not going to go in that direction.
Right. And so you give it the intention. What else do you have to give that plant?
Besides love?
Like the actual therapy,
like
so to speak.
The water and the fertilizer, right?
Right.
You have to give it all the nutrients and the things that it needs to thrive.
Exactly.
Like sunlight.
Maybe a little more sun, a little less sun.
Right.
More water, less water. Depends on the plant. But you mentioned, I'm not a green thumb. And most of the people that I ask that question to are not either. Right? And yet everybody always says some combination of water, sun, soil, right?
Right.
Why? Because we all intuitively have an understanding of what that organism needs to thrive.
Right.
What if we applied the same concept to ourselves, to our emotional health?
Yeah.
And so that is the foundation, the 5 pillars of emotional health. That's the foundation of what I teach. Your psychology, relationships, nutrition, sleep, and body movement.
Oh, that's terrific.
And so when you optimize those 5 areas with some practical applications, and this is also a framework to work with, we set the stage for us to be able to be more emotionally intelligent and emotionally resilient when life inevitably throws us the curveballs. And so on the surface, it's like, all right, that's really simple. It is simple, just like sun, soil, and water.
Sure.
It's just not easy, right? And so how do we implement those things in our lives? And those are fundamentally what I do now with my clients and the companies that they work with.
Yeah, so that's like it's a very integrative way of approaching improvement, right, or success, because even with like a cancer patient, let's say, you've got to implement all these things, the movement,
Yep.
you know, because if the body's not moving, there's a lot of stagnation. Well, what causes illness in the first place?
Yeah.
Stagnation of some sort,
Yeah.
right? So we got to get moving. We got to believe that we can get better,
Yep.
right? And then implement all the strategies
Yeah.
to help the body move in the right direction. But without the soul, without the emotional aspects of that human being, there's no moving forward
Right.
in any situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think about this, and even more and more. When I first started my medical practice, mind body medicine, man, what's that? You know, I don't care. I'm here to work with athletes and
Yeah.
and sports medicine, and I'm going to implement stem cell, and I'm going to do these things to get them better. But what I started noticing, and you know, I've been a practicer of meditation since I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if it works for me, it's got to work for other people
Mhm.
too. So I started talking to my patients about meditation because I saw that stress and their mental emotional state was affecting
Mhm.
their ability to get better.
Right.
Sure enough, my patients that started a meditation practice, all things being equal, got way better results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also had a patient on the other end of the spectrum who was so stressed out that no matter what I implemented, he wasn't getting better.
Yeah.
Once he addressed the stress, everything just worked.
Stress is such a cornerstone, I think, to a lot of people's challenges, whether it's a specific diagnosis, whether or not. And you know, when it boils down to it, this human organism, right, this body that we inhabit, was not created for this crazy modern world.
No, it wasn't.
This was created for nature, and it was optimized for nature. Everything down to, you know, our whole aldosterone pathway, you know, and because water is scarce, clean water is scarce, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So anything that we can do to preserve water, we're going to do. Anything we're going to do to preserve energy, we're going to do. Anything that we're going to do, anything to prevent the unnecessary use of energy, we're going to do, and that's where the mind comes in.
Right.
Because of all the organs in the human body, the one that uses the most energy is the brain.
Yep.
At 20%.
Uh-huh.
Just to exist, just to do nothing. Well, not nothing, but nothing, no work, so to speak.
No
other
physical,
than just
right.
everything, just to keep everything running,
Uh-huh.
right? And so when we're tackling, like looking at, let's say I have this stressor, it's easier to just say I don't want to deal with it
Uh-huh.
than it is to actually do the work to look in. But nobody's broken for that.
Right.
That's actually how we're wired, to not want to make these changes because they take energy. And
Right.
energy in nature is scarce. These days, what a glorious world that a lot of us, you know, fortunately get to live in, where, you know, we can go to the grocery store, you know, we can go to a restaurant. I mean, heck, these days, you don't have to get off your couch, right?
You just
Food
call
just
it, order.
shows, yeah, just DoorDash, and food just shows up at your front
It's
door.
hunting you down.
Right. Now, if they can figure out how to get that food from the door right in front of you, so you don't even have to get off the couch, that would be the next step.
You just leave the door unlocked
Right,
and
I
say,
guess you
it's
could.
open.
Yeah, just give them an extra tip or something. But it's just that is not nature. Nature, it is hard to acquire energy. So we live in a different world, but we need to figure out ways of incorporating some of those things into our day-to-day life, and it makes things so much better. And a simple way is just having more plants indoors with us,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Incorporating a mindfulness and meditation practice. And it's not about silencing the mind or not, you know, the stillness or everything. It's just the consciousness of bringing the mind back to whatever you're focusing on, whether it's the breath, whether it's a thought, whether it's a sound, whatever it is, or a guided meditation. It's just that bringing it back, because that stress that, you know, your patient or somebody goes through, maybe, you know, you listening right now, it's an adaptation to the circumstances that we are in. And sometimes it's just a matter of being really intentional with how we interact with the world around us and how we engage with our day-to-day schedule, and look for those little things that can give us a 1% advantage here, 5% advantage there,
Right.
and just eliminate some of the obstacles to cure, right? Easy one, you know, how many of us go to sleep with our phones,
Oh man, so many people do.
Right?
Not me.
Yeah. No,
I know better.
I gave that one
Yeah.
up a few years ago but I was doing it just like it was my alarm clock.
Uh-huh.
Well, we remember a time before alarm clocks, people still got up, or before phones.
Right.
We had the alarm clocks. They
Uh-huh.
they worked great.
Yeah.
But simply starting your day without the notifications
Oh, yeah.
goes such a long way.
Yes.
Ending
Absolutely.
your day without all of those things
Mhm.
goes such a long way. And sometimes you can reduce stress just by elimination, not by adding more things on your plate.
Right. Yeah, we don't need all these apps to tell us to be calm.
Yeah.
Put the phone down.
Yeah,
That might
put the
be a
phone
good
down.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've gotten, I use technology obviously, as we all
Mhm.
do, but
Yeah.
I put it away when I don't need it.
Right.
I'm like even Facebook.
Mhm.
I was there yesterday because I was thanking everybody for the happy birthday wishes, but that's it.
Mhm.
And I value being present
Right.
and with people
Right.
face to face, because so many people are so lazy that they won't even pick up the phone anymore. They'll just text you, right?
Right.
Or nothing wrong texting, but if you don't have a relationship outside of text messages, that's not a
Yeah.
relationship, or outside of Facebook,
Right.
social media of any kind, we got to get together and be a community again. We have to connect with human energy.
Yeah.
There's an energy exchange when you're present with that person, as opposed to on a social media platform
Mhm.
or texting or whatever, right?
Well, I was having this conversation, on that note, I was having this conversation with one of the companies I work with. They were just kind of recognizing how a lot of their employees, after spending a full 8-hour day together, and they're an HVAC company here in the Valley, so
Uh-huh.
the work is hard. They're
Yeah,
in the
that's hard work.
attics in the summer.
Okay.
I mean, it's brutal, right? And despite that, after a long day, they will go hang out with each other often, and then go home from there,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's not just a couple of them; there's several, right?
Uh-huh.
And as we were talking about that, and they were wondering, like, it's like, we do have, the owners were saying, we do have great camaraderie here, and talking specifically about one person there, a challenge that he was going through. And I said, don't underestimate the importance of the community aspect
Mhm.
that you have here at work, right? Because think about it, it's for what you just said. A lot of these folks are in their early to mid 20s. So what do they grow up with, right? Where a lot of your connections were through social media,
Uh-huh.
phones, things like that.
Yeah.
Then there was, they were still developing a sense of who they are during COVID, when there was even more disconnection.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they could go home after a long day, but they'd rather spend more time together because they are together.
Yes.
We are a social species.
Yes.
Introvert or extrovert, doesn't matter. It's about the right people. We do want to be around the right people. The amounts, all that, how we do it will vary person to person.
Right.
But there is a level of togetherness and belonging that is critical.
Absolutely. I mean, we build tribes, right?
Yeah.
We build our people. We find our people, and then we build these circles of communication and connection. And it's really important, because people thrive more. I mean, I know even for becoming successful, you can't do it on your own.
Right.
You need the right people in your life, and you need the right team to be successful. That just proves that connection is very important.
Right.
Because if you're out in the world all by yourself trying to do it, you're going to fall flat on your face.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit more about what you do with your job, with your medical practice,
Mhm.
because it's interesting. I don't think I know anybody else that does this. So it's definitely a unique design, and you've definitely paved your own path.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about emotional health mentor and coach, what that means.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I love working with business owners and their companies, and here's why. I believe that we can move move into a world where the most talented, the best people work for emotionally healthy companies. And why is that so important to me? Because, well, I remember what it was like not to work in such a space. It was a different time and economic situation for sure that added to a lot of stress there. But ultimately, it's this, right? We become our surroundings. We become the people that we spend the most time with.
Yes.
And really, going back to what I was saying about energy preservation, we develop a sense of who we are, our habits, our routines, our neural pathways that get reinforced over the course of time when we go through that same process over and over again. For instance, when we first learn how to drive, it's terrifying. We're looking at every mirror,
We're aware of everything, yes.
We're aware of everything. Now we can drive home from work and it's like,
How did I get here?
How did I get here?
Yes.
Did you actually tune out? No. You were paying attention the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of things have been chunked into procedural memory
Uh-huh.
because we did them over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The same thing is true about things around our identity. And so generally people don't want to change because it takes energy to do so.
Yeah.
They may not realize that's the reason, but largely that's the case. And so it's in our nature not to make wholesale changes to who we are.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biological side of who we are.
That's right.
The spiritual side of who we are always needs to grow.
Yeah.
And that's why that sense of stagnation, feeling stuck in life, I hear that a lot. I just feel like I'm stuck. I get it. I was there, right? You just feel like you're in a trap and you can't move. And the only way out of that is to grow. And growth comes with discomfort.
Yes.
They go hand in hand. And you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to be able to grow. I wanted to grow my leadership ability, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to run for student government president.
Yeah. You just step into the unknown, right?
Step into the unknown.
You face your fears.
And 95% of people are past protectors. Protect the past, right? This is how it was. These are my truths about the world, the lens through which I see the world. This is the way things are, and preferences and likes and tastes and things like that. Generally, musical tastes don't largely change over time in the sense that like the music that we grew up with is usually the ones that we...
It's not, too drastic.
Not too drastic compared to, And so things like that. But only 5% of people are growth seekers. People that will actively step out of their comfort zone to grow and find fulfillment that way.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're born a growth seeker or a past protector. You become a growth seeker. Sure. And the easiest way to become one is to be around one. So the reason, bringing back to companies, the reason that I love working with companies is because imagine if, 1 out of 20 people is a growth seeker. But what if you, at a company, you have that 1 out of 20 next to a 1 out of 20 next to a 1 out of 20. Now all of a sudden imagine how much further this group of people can go, not just in business, but in their personal lives too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The goal is so that, yes, work stress doesn't travel home and home stress doesn't travel to work, but in the process, everybody benefits. Everybody at the company, but then their families, their spouses, their kids. They benefit from this more emotionally aware, emotionally mature, emotionally resilient person. And then that causes this chain reaction among the people that they spend time with, et cetera. Yeah. And so that's why I love working with companies specifically. But at the same time, I do have group coaching programs for everybody and certainly on content on my social media channels and whatnot. So, but again, the goal is providing a toolbox of skills and frameworks to be able to handle different things in life and to be emotionally healthy. So for instance, if the only tool in your toolbox was a hammer, that'd be great if you had just a bunch of nails.
Right.
If you have to screw something in, that's a problem.
Right.
If you only have a hammer, right? And like for me in my life, the only tool that I had was work harder, be a perfectionist, right? That was my counter to being so hard on myself and so self-critical. But that's not always the best approach. Right. Is to just work harder at it. Right? Because no matter how hard you work at running east, you will never see the sunset.
That's a good point, yes.
So you need the right tool for the right job along with the right effort. And Yeah, but ultimately it's about that toolbox of emotional health skills.
Yeah. And how do you approach the program, how do you approach working with your clients? Like, how do they find you, and then how do you set up how do you design the program with them? Like, do you have sessions with them? Do you just have a one-time and then give them, like tools to use? How does that work?
So for business owners that want one-on-one coaching, I work with them for a 6-month span of time, every week, one session a week. Plus we're connected in between sessions, because that was another thing I recognized. You're practicing medicine, and especially if you're talking about lifestyle changes and whatnot, the magic is not happening in the appointment. It's happening in between when they see you. If they haven't changed their food, what are you going to do in a doctor's visit, right? And so that's part of it too, is they have access to me in between. And the reason it's 6 months, 25 sessions, is because we didn't get here overnight. It takes a little bit of time to unwind. And also, as a person starts to grow and improve, you don't really know how far you've come until the crap hits the fan in life and you're actually able to see what happens, right? And I generally find that over a 6-month period of time, let's just say there's an opportunity for somebody to implement, some of the skills that they've developed, and then that way, and they can see for themselves how much they've grown in that time. So that's one-on-one coaching for business owners. And then I have a larger version of that for their companies. So I still work one-on-one with the owners, the management team.
Okay.
I'll do group programs with all the employees. So that we, I can teach them some of the frameworks, like the truth cycle and expectations versus standards, and some of these other core foundational principles that I teach. And then also they all have access to my Insiders Club, where I have my online courses, which is also available to the general public as well. But that one has courses like End Self-Criticism, Crush Imposter Syndrome, Good Mood Plant Food, my nutrition course for emotional health, and basically everything around the 5 pillars: psychology, relationships, nutrition, sleep, body movement.
Okay. And then the online program, is it like a webinars that you've pre-recorded, or is it where they meet with you?
It's a bit of both, actually. Thanks for asking that. But yeah, there's the pre-recorded courses that are self-directed, and then I do a once-a-month special live stream based on topics that the community wants, and so that's available to everybody that way. And then I do open office hours once a week, so anyone can hop in, get their questions answered, or just vent or whatever they need.
Yeah. And these are clients that have established a relationship with you already, and then you have open time for them if they have questions or whatever. That's brilliant, because I mean, how do you manage that? Because I know, like myself as a doctor, if people were bombarding me in between patient visits, it would be kind of challenging.
Yeah.
And so I have to limit it to certain things. If I can answer it in a quick email, I'll do that. But if it requires a visit, I tell them they have to set up an appointment. So how do you set those limits with people?
So if it's somebody in my Emotional Healthy Entrepreneur program, the 6-month coaching, I want them to interact. And so a lot of times the homework assignments that I'll give them will be, let's say, a daily journaling assignment, and they need to send it to me every night. Or every morning, whenever they do it, right? But at a certain point, they get to a certain point, they don't really need that level of accountability, because now the momentum is going. And so it's more the check-ins if something happens, something notable, positive or negative, whatever it is. And there are times, though, that something will come up, and I'll say, thanks for letting me know, capturing it, especially for emotional health-related things. If something, let's say I have a meeting with a client on Wednesday, and something happens on Friday, right? And they don't see me till next Wednesday. If they come back next Wednesday and tell me about what happened, 5 days ago, it's not as raw and real.
Sure.
Whereas if, they send me a message right there in that moment as it's fresh, I can kind of capture exactly what it's about, and then I'll say, thanks for sharing this, and we'll talk about it at our next session. And that's where I kind of draw the line. If I can help them in that moment, then I will. And usually, even in the ones that I tell them we'll continue this next week, there's some degree of that. But yeah, as far as when I respond, I do prefer to respond when I am not in between, let's say, my appointments are 45 minutes, right? And they might go over a little bit, but so let's say 50 minutes. In that 10-minute span, it's probably not the best time between one person and the next person for me to focus on trying to answer one person's one question.
Yeah, right.
It gives me that chance to just, recenter myself and then focus on the next person.
Yeah.
But then when I'm done with the day, or if I have a larger gap in the day, then that's when I'll get back to the clients.
I see.
It's a balancing act, but the other aspect too is, I do recognize that for me to be very effective at what I do, I can't have too many clients at the same time.
Okay. That's kind of how you manage it.
That's how I manage it that way.
Make sure your workload isn't like all work and no sleep.
Yeah, exactly. If I filled my schedule, just by the very nature of what I do, I won't have any emotional bandwidth left to help anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why I lean into the group coaching, because that allows me to do a little bit more impact-wise without taking away my own well-being. This is the oxygen mask in the plane, right? You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself.
Yeah.
And I teach that to my clients too, right? Whether it's their families or their whatever it is, like you got to take care of yourself first. But I have to apply that to myself as well, because if I get too overzealous and just take on too many clients, then at any given time, then it's a disservice to anybody that I am serving.
Right.
To take on that next person at that time. When somebody graduates from the program, then I bring the next one in. And that kind of, if they're still in a place where they need it, want it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which usually they are. But yeah, it's. And the other thing too is that if it's something that requires therapy and more immediate, let's say trauma counseling or something like that, I will absolutely refer them out for that first.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Before coming and working with me.
So you don't do any individual counseling at all. You just, you do, but within a group context.
Well, no, the one-on-one.
Let's say somebody's dealing with PTSD of some sort.
Yeah.
Would you refer that out?
If that's their main thing, then yes, because they're people that are very, very well trained in some of those specialties. Actually, what I find is that a lot of the clients that come to me, they've come to me after they've done a lot of that trauma counseling work. So they've come to me after they've done therapy. And so they understand a lot of where things come from. They understand the value of working on themselves. They understand all of those things, and they're ready to take it to another level.
I see.
And how to apply it in a different context, and also in many cases, bring in the spiritual healing side of it as well. It's not really what I lead with, but sometimes it still goes there, as I'm sure it does for you.
Do you just kind of feel that out with the client, like where they're at and what they need, and
you listen to the words that they say.
Yeah.
If they're saying, I really believe things happen for a reason. Okay, we can work with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Well, I believe that everybody's truth is right. Because if you
absolutely
however you design your reality,
yeah.
Is your reality. It's not my reality.
Right.
So I have to accept that that's your reality.
Right.
And we're not here to convert people. We're here to help them.
Right.
And where they're at.
Exactly. Reality is subjective.
Very.
And that alone, like the first lesson that I teach people is what I call the truth cycle, and it's to help them understand how do we develop to the people that we are, and this lens through which we see the world. So the lens through which I used to see the world was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for my parents. I'm not good enough for my community. I'm not good enough for myself. And in all the different ways that fed into you're not good enough. And even when there's evidence that points to the contrary, even if people were to tell me, appreciate you for this, or look at all these things, I would blatantly say that the standards that I hold for myself are different than other people, than even for my best friend. Hey, listen, if it's your best friend that you care so much about, and you're like, listen, that decision you made went against you, that's okay, you'll get better, things like, well, you can't apply the same thing to myself. I couldn't, because that was the lens through which I saw the world, because it's not consistent with I'm not enough.
Right.
Right? And so that becomes the reality that we see everything through. And then when that lifts or it shifts, you can see things a little bit differently, and it's still subjective. So the thing is, it's subjective no matter what, whether it's disempowering or it's empowering.
Yeah.
It's still subjective.
Yeah.
So why not pick the one that helps you more?
Right, because we have a choice every day we wake up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if
Absolutely.
reality was a fixed idea, then you'd have two people reacting the same to the same situation. You know,
We would have no variety in life.
Right. One person might react to a message in a positive way, and another person might react to that same message with anxiety or fear. So
Right. That's
reality,
because those two realities are different.
Right. Exactly.
But if everybody's reality was same, I think we'd all be robots. Or something. It's like
that's the word that came to my mind.
No variety in life, and
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of human beings. It's
Yeah.
just that difference in subjective realities unfortunately leads to so many conflicts and misunderstandings and at whatever scale. And I think so much of our growth at a certain point in our life comes from understanding the beauty that is in that subjective reality.
I think we could eliminate the majority of the conflict if we would just accept that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because so many people, especially when they get in relationships, they try to change one another.
Right.
Or, you got into this relationship with this person knowing who they were, and now you're trying to change them. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
They are who they are, and they're bringing something into your world that you don't possess yourself, or a quality or an idea, characteristic, and that's the beauty of it. If we were all the same, that'd be pretty boring. Right. And I certainly don't want to connect with people that are like me. I want them to be like-minded, maybe, or have a similar, maybe, philosophy in life, or a similar growth pattern.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to be just like me, because I've never learned anything.
Right.
And I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
Because I don't know everything.
But see, that's exactly it. I think as long as you have two people that are growth seekers, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like this desire to always learn and grow, doesn't matter what walk of life they come from.
Right.
There's always something that you can pick up. And it has nothing to do with socioeconomic background or race or anything else. I find that growth-seeking mentality can be acquired at any point in life by anyone.
Yep.
And then once that happens, there's no going back. It's a one-way street.
Yeah.
Like
and
once
you wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't want to. Like, But yeah, does it come with a cost at times? Like, we're both business owners, and there's times that we're recording this on a Saturday, right? For one, right? Yeah. And so technically we're working, but I would do this anyway, even if we were not speaking to you guys. But there are times that we might be actually working on a project or a book or something like that, and it might be on a weekend. And I've gotten comments from some friends like, "Oh, you're working on a Saturday? Oh, I'm so sorry." No, I love this.
But they're the ones that do a 9 to 5.
Yeah, this is not work to me. This is my life purpose.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing. Now, does that mean can I do it 24/7? Absolutely not. Yeah. Because we do need the balance, but
Absolutely.
We have the flexibility to be able to lean in at times and lean away at times and lean into other things, even if that's rest, to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so it's just, but the moment that you go into that growth-seeking way of living, you can't go back.
It's addictive.
Yeah, you can't really go back, because otherwise you see a glimpse of who you can be, and then it's just a disservice to yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Going forward to not give yourself a chance to see what you're made of and what the impact that you can have for the people around you are.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
To help people.
Absolutely.
And have a positive impact on the world around us.
Absolutely.
And no matter what we're doing, whether it's medicine, whether we're an accountant, we're doing some kind of financial, we should be helping people.
Yeah.
Whatever we do. And if we're not helping people, then we're really not fulfilling our true purpose.
We all have our zones of genius. We all have gifts that, frankly, didn't come for free. I look at some of the people that come to me because they're like, I'm too much of a people pleaser. I can't, I just let people walk all over me at times and things like that. and that's their biggest struggle. And what they want to be is almost the opposite of that, where it's just that go-getter, make things happen, it doesn't matter who's in your way, that kind of thing. They think that that's the better way of being, but in reality, what they possess is a gift. A gift of being able to connect with people, to understand them, to be a confidant, right? To harmonize with people around them, or maybe harmonize two other individuals to be the person. Like, that's a gift, and I guarantee that didn't come for free, because as I talk to all of them about past experiences, to a T, there was some degree of conflict in their lives growing up, whether it was between parents or a parent that left, or whatever it was.
Right.
And the way that they as a child compensated for that was to be a peacemaker. And that, you can't teach that. It doesn't come for free.
It comes from experience.
It comes from experience. It comes from this deep spiritual knowing of the role that we serve in the world, right? Now, taken too far, people pleasing and things like that, and letting people run all over you. And that's where creating standards is really powerful, because you understand, okay, where can I use my superpower, and where do I lean elsewhere? And that's also why it's so important for us to be around other people that complement us and have skills that we don't. I mean, even in business, right? In the beginning, when you're trying to bootstrap everything, like, oh, I'll just do everything myself. Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, I've been there too. And coming from a business background, I was like, oh, I can do all the branding and marketing and finance and everything else. I can do all that. It's like, sure, I can, but not as well as an actual branding person, or an actual CPA, or an actual whatever, right?
We all need people.
Right. And that's why some of them need us for what we do.
That's right.
Rather than trying to fix whatever they're dealing with on their own. We need each other. That's the whole point. Lean into your superpowers, right? And use that in the service of others. Now, does that mean that you have to be a business owner to do it? Absolutely not.
Right.
And that's why I love, again, Emotionally Healthy Company, because when people can see their role within the company as one that provides an impact to the people that they serve, which granted might not be every company that fits the bill there. I don't work with just everybody. It has to be kind of mission-driven, purpose-driven organizations that have a deep why for what they're doing. But as long as that's there, everybody that works there can create their personal version of that too. And so as long as we have that understanding of how we make the lives of people around us better, at whatever scale, whatever reach, whatever impact, doesn't matter. But therein lies true purpose.
And what I've noticed for myself in my own life is that there'll be a certain energy within a group. Anybody that doesn't possess that energy, it'll either change, they'll raise their vibration, or they'll just organically go. And somebody else will come in to fill that spot. And we all took the personality test in med school way back, probably even before we started school. And everybody has a role within a group, right? Not everybody's going to be a leader, and thank God, because that would be a lot of headbutting, right? But we have people that support or play the support, the communicators, the people that are able to do certain tasks. And we need all these people to create, a stable organization.
Right.
So every organization can't have just all leaders. They need all these different players to make it work.
Right.
And so everybody has a role. So with the role, you have the role, and then you also have the vibrational tendencies, everybody's, how on board they are and how focused they are on the tasks at hand and how connected they are with that group. It all plays in to create a successful organization, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me how you're set apart from the traditional, emotional health coaches, because what you do is not traditional,
right? And
it's not cookie cutter at all.
It's in some ways it's an amalgamation of a few things, I suppose. There isn't one category I think that really defines as is what I do or how I serve people. Is there a little bit of, flair of therapy? Sure. Is there a little bit of, doctor, as you know, comes from the Latin word docere, to teach. So that's how I see myself more as a teacher, right? So is there some of that? Yes. Is there elements of life coach? Yes. There's a broad range, but the way that I see myself is there are platforms that are out there, employee assistance programs for various things, including nowadays a lot more from a mental health standpoint, which is really great to see. Just seeing employees get access to counselors when they need. The challenge with EAPs in general, though, is that they usually get 1 to 5% utilization.
And what's EAP?
Employee assistance programs.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, we have access to this. You work here, you have access to this,
Yeah.
right? But if only 1 to 5% of people at the company use it, it's good for that person or those people that use it, but is it really moving the needle for the whole business? And so that's where I bring a different approach, right? Where just like you might hire a consultant or a coach, a business coach for the business, or you might hire a fractional CFO if you don't have your own CFO, but fractional CFO or fractional COO. I'm in a sense like a fractional chief wellness officer in a sense of somebody that is integrated into the whole process of being there in the business. Not because I'm providing any strategic, advice or things like that, but a business is only going to go as far as the business owner's own mind, their own identity, how they see themselves. If they're dealing, and I talked to a consultant an executive coach who works with a lot of high-level CEOs, including Fortune 500 CEOs, and he said to a T, everybody he's worked with, no matter what level they're at, deals with some level of imposter syndrome. Now, if you're dealing with imposter syndrome and you say, okay, I want to get here, but I don't know, I feel like a fraud, I don't think I can get there. You're questioning yourself inside. Yeah, on the outside it might look like everything is good. Yeah. Right? How far can you really take it if you're internally questioning yourself?
Yeah, right.
Right? And so addressing those things for the business owner, and then having everybody at the company feel like by working here, I as a person am better off for working here. It's not just a means to an end.
Right.
It's not just a paycheck. This is a part of my life right now to work here, and I am growing because I'm here. I am better off for being here than working anywhere else. That's the goal. And so that's where the approach is different. And so yes, as we narrow down and I'm meeting with one person at a time, are there elements that, like, again, sound like therapy? Yes. Elements that sound like life coaching? Yes. But it's really that large framework of what does it take to be emotionally healthy, and that's how I serve as the emotional health mentor.
Yeah, it shouldn't be just the success of the company, it should be the success of each individual too.
Yeah. Well, the individuals are what makes the company successful.
Exactly, but how many companies work with that mindset?
Correct, yeah.
With that philosophy?
Well, and that's why I'm very selective with who I work with, because the one common element in the business owners that I serve, their companies, they are the leader, right? But they see their leadership as almost like a servant. It's like they see themselves. My job is to give you what you need,
right,
to be successful in your role.
Yeah.
Right. My job is to give you what you need to be successful in your role, and in return, obviously, that person, that team, the sets of teams, the organization moves forward and achieves the goals of the organization. Yeah. Right. And so, as opposed to, somebody that might think they have the answers, or or just is not necessarily in it for the well-being of everybody that works there.
And how do you screen that? Like,
it's pretty clear in the conversation.
So you have an initial conversation with the owner to say, this is what I do and this is.
But I also find that actually this ties into a question you asked me earlier. How do people find me? Usually it's by referral. And so that is the best way, because let's say a business owner that really values taking care of their people,
Yeah.
they're going to recognize other business owners that feel the same way and refer that person, and it works out better that way. But the other way is also when I'm, like, say I'm doing keynote speeches and things like that, but I just find that they self-select. Usually they're in a mind space where they are ready for this. And I rarely have to have a conversation where I'll flat out say, I don't feel I'm a good fit for your organization.
Because you just attract the right energy, the right mind.
At least to this point. Maybe that'll change in the future, I don't know. But at least that's been my experience so far.
Long time ago, when I was in my 20s, I remember I used to read the Reader's Digest, and so many good articles in that. I remember reading this article about how business owners that treated their employees well, and that's just kind of a generalized statement, but that treated their employees well, gave them a lot of, job satisfaction, had more successful businesses. So it seems like you're coming in, you're helping implement this. Helping people have that job satisfaction, showing how everybody can work together to create that environment, right?
Absolutely.
Because it really is about the environment we exist in, and like you said, we're only as good as the 5 closest people that we surround ourselves by, right? So, who are we surrounding ourselves by? Well, if you go to a job and you're surrounded by people, those are the people you're surrounded with, even more than your family.
In many cases, absolutely.
So if you're not resonating or working well together or lifting each other up, then it's not going to create success in other aspects of your life, your personal life, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I understand you're an author, and you've written just one book, or how many books have you written so far?
I'm in the process of becoming an author.
Okay,
as we
so
this.
let me rephrase that then, because tell me about it. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's it's called The Emotionally Healthy You: How to Own Your Past and Love Your Future. And this is fundamentally a lot of the root teachings that I work with my clients on. And we talk about the 5 pillars of emotional health. Psychology. We talked about the lens through which you see the world, right? So understanding that lens, how it develops, what are the stories that run your life that you're not even aware of. Emotional intelligence factors in here, history of trauma, all of those things factor into the lens through which we see the world. Number 2, relationships. We're the average of the 5 people and ideas we spend the most time with. So yes, we're talking about friendships, we're talking about romantic relationships, we're talking about family dynamics, all of those things. When we're up-leveling the people we spend time with, some people we can, but some people we can't cut out of our lives, right? Family. So how do we best?
Well, we can.
How do we
weigh
best
the risk
navigate?
benefit.
How do we best navigate? How do we show up differently to relationships that might allow the other person in time to shift the way that they see us? Number 3, nutrition. I talk about how, as you know, 90% of our neurotransmitters, just the serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all these things are regulated every moment. How we think, act, and feel are coming, we don't make them. And 90% of them are made by our gut bacteria. And so I talk about the gut microbiome. I talk about how to eat in a way that supports your emotional health from the inside out. Just something as simple as, we think about the vagus nerve and all of its vital functions for, our breathing, our heart rate, heart beating in general, digestion, all these things, these vital functions. And yet 90% of the vagus nerve fibers fire from gut to brain, not from brain to gut.
That's right.
And it's fascinating when you think about it, because then when we have a gut feeling, might actually be true. This might be the second brain down here.
Probably the first brain.
Or maybe the first brain. Yeah, this is the auxiliary brain.
I think it dictates more than this.
Yeah, well,
this gets in the way, but
this is true. This is true.
Truth.
Number 4, sleep. It's the first thing to go when we're busy, and especially for a lot of the business owners, working professionals that I work with. But there are really some simple things. We talked about the phone aspect. There's some simple things that we can do to work with our circadian rhythm to ensure that we have, again, better cortisol, melatonin balance, and the like. And so, but sleep is where we commit things to long-term memory. And if it was not important, then we would have selected against it a long time ago.
Right.
And yet we still spend a third of our life sleeping. So to simply be on team no sleep and, I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, it doesn't work that. I used to be that way. Paid the price big time. And then number 5, body movement. Motion dictates emotion. So yes, there's the exercise component, but there's just also the being in constant low-grade motion and the impact that can have on our emotional health. So I go through those. I go through, we talk about imposter syndrome. We talk about all these challenges that we generally have with our emotional health, and some frameworks that folks can use to work their way through and become emotionally healthier. So that's what the book's about. It's coming out in Q1 next year.
Okay.
And
but you have a link to it now.
yeah, actually, if you want to download the first chapter, you can.
Okay.
If you go to drkarthicramanan.com/books, I think you'll have it in the show notes here.
Yep.
You can download the first chapter and read that for free, and you'll be the first to know when the book comes out.
Oh, brilliant. And if you had one message to give to the world, what would it be?
Oh, you're going to make me narrow it down to one?
Yes, because it has to be profound.
Stop chasing joy. Begin living in wonder.
Oh, that's brilliant. And what do you mean exactly by stop chasing joy? Do you feel
when
that?
I get there, then I'll be happy. When I get that next promotion, when I get married, when I have a kid, when I retire.
My happiness is in the future.
My happiness.
Yeah.
We just keep, I need to make more money. I need to, whatever it is. When I get there, then I'll be happy. No, that day never comes.
Right, because the future doesn't exist.
The future doesn't exist, and it's a moving target.
Yeah.
Because it's being run by a truth system that doesn't serve us. Living in wonder is like what a child does. Everything is possible. I was 6 years old, and I told my mom I want to be a basketball player like Michael Jordan. Never mind that I've grown up to be 5'8", and I don't know how many Indian people you see in the NBA, but as far as I know, none. So anyway, but that was all possible back then, right? I didn't know what my life was supposed to be about at that time, but anything is possible. And so living in wonder is that element of what am I made of? What can I do that I might not have been allowing myself to do? What impact can I make? What fulfillment can I experience from that impact?
Yeah.
What if it's possible? Stop chasing joy, begin living in wonder.
I started becoming more and more aware of that, being in the moment. Because there was an element of that, especially after graduating medical school and starting a business and wanting to be successful, right? So it was just always a sight in the future because I wasn't there yet. And then I started waking up every day and realizing that I'm writing the script to my own play. And every day is a scene in that play.
Right.
So if we're not paying attention to this scene, the future scenes don't come.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
It'll just be more of the same or worse.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. I have the links in the show notes here as well. But drkarthicramanan.com.
Okay.
And you'll see on the top there's tabs for individuals, for entrepreneurs, for companies. So if you're interested in having a conversation about what might be a good fit for you, or you just want to join the Insiders Club, which is on that for individuals.
Do you have like
page.
a forum or something, or what?
Yeah, it's all the information's right on there, along with the
great.
workshops and things like that I
So
do.
through your website is the
through
best
my
way?
website is the best way.
Okay,
Yeah. It's all there. It's all there.
Well, so as you heard, Dr. K is available for individual, corporate, group type therapy. Is that the right way of putting it? Therapy.
Emotional health.
Emotional
coaching.
health. Emotional health coaching. You want to say it right. And if you want to reach him, you can go to his website, and all of his contact information and social media links will be in the description below. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.